this morning about how MOPS is so life-changing, and I'm just so grateful that there's a space for you guys all to be here. I get excited. I was telling East, I get so excited because MOPS was so life-changing for me. It's where I found healing and calling and a tribe of soul sisters. Things like I came for coffee and childcare, you know, and I got this other stuff that continues to be this blessing and a gift to me, and I'm just so amazed by that. So I get so excited just knowing that you all are here, about to start your journey. Some of you for the first time, some of you just continuing the journey, and it's this new place, right, with like a new kid and all that comes and brings about. But I know that there's so much more here if you guys open yourselves up to it. So I love being a speaker towards the beginning of the year too, to kind of share what my MOPS story was, as I also talk about the theme and kind of set a stage for what I see in MOPS groups all over the place. Like, as I share my story about my own MOPS group, it is not a unique thing like, oh, that happens every now and again. It like happens everywhere. Everywhere that I go, I always thought like, oh, my MOPS group just, you know, has the special sauce or whatever. No, it's like, it's just MOPS everywhere. And I'll tell you, if I ever move, like, I'm gonna come here, because you guys, you're like one tribe already, and you guys are so warm and so welcoming. I'm just like, I didn't know too much about Encinitas, but I'm a fan. I'm just a fan. This is my family. My husband and I, Jose, have been married for 16 years. And you guys, is marriage with kids not a trip? I mean, it's a thing. 16 years. They say that the most intense times in marriage, where your marriage satisfaction level is at the lowest, don't worry, Katie, you're not in the zone yet, is when you have children who are under 5 or you have teenagers. So happy marriage to all of you. Right? You're in it. And so to stay for 16 years, I remember when I was in the trenches with little ones, and my husband would come home from work and be like, so what'd you do today? And I'm like, I kept our children alive. Everything. That was it. My 2 goals are keep the children out of urgent care and stay married to you. So far, we're doing okay, but the night is young, you know? So like, watch it with these questions, these loaded questions. But like, literally, it's true, because everything else really was just bonus, you know? It was like, let's focus on the kids, let's focus on the marriage, because if we have all that in place, everything else, you know, it really is just noise, right? Or extra. That is our family. My husband was born in Mexico, and we finally went to Cancun this summer, so they were very excited about it. I finally let them go. The lower left is the dog that we got before COVID. She is such a delight. Then I am homeschooling now, thanks to COVID. COVID opportunity, year 2. That's the sass that they give me when I try to teach them. Yeah, so they're super fun. This is a little bit about me. Books have been a huge part of my journey. I love to read. Part of the reason is because I was not really in touch with myself, my thinking, my story for a long time. And so when I would read books from other women in particular, but men also for sure, that would talk about their journey and how they were processing things and how they saw things, I'm like, that's me. Like, I relate to that. Like, those are words I don't know how to express, but I totally identify with that. And it helped me understand and create language for myself about my own experiences and my own thoughts and my own feelings. And so books are still a really big part of my journey. And I'm gonna raffle off one of my favorites at the end. The pictures with the little bouquet, that's a bouquet that my daughter got for me when we were on a road trip. She just picked all these little wildflowers. I realized during COVID that nature is just a really healing thing for me. And my kids too. Did you notice that your kids are nicer when they are in nature than bouncing off the walls in your like living room, right? They're so different. I am also a different mom in nature than I am when my kids are bouncing off the walls inside of our house. And so my kids have realized mommy's happy when we're in nature. So when we were on this road trip, Sarah comes up to me and is like, here, mommy, don't be the mommy that was in the car just now. Be the mommy that's happy. Well, not really. But the top right is, those are my soul sisters. Those are girls that I was in leadership with MOPS for like 7 years we were together. We still meet. Thursday morning was when my MOPS group met, and Thursday night is when the 4 of us get together and do a Bible study still. So we're in it now for about 9 years that we've been traveling together. Our kids are all older now. My oldest is in 6th grade, my youngest is in 3rd grade, and my kids are the oldest. And so we have the whole spectrum down to a 1-year-old, right, between the 4 of us. And we need each other as much as we did when they were little. You know, as life continues and the world changes, and as our kids develop, we are still needing what we found at these tables still. So we still need to have that circle up time with the other moms who understand what's going on, and we can speak life to each other, and we can remind each other who we are when we forget, and we can call each other higher. And so I love that you are creating those relationships now, whether you realize it or not. Hope, I consider myself a hope bearer. I'm amazed that people give me microphones and stages to declare hope and to speak hope into people's lives. I consider myself a freedom fighter, and I like to invite women into finding the freedom and wholeness that's available to them as well. There's nothing unique about me and my story. It's the God that we all have access to that has done this work. And so I love to be able to remind women of that like, if there's a place in your parenting where you're like, I don't want to parent the way I was parented, I don't want to pass on what was given to me, but I don't know how to do that differently, like God will help with that. There is another way, and there's a way to do it differently, and there's a way for us to walk in freedom and for our kids to walk in freedom too. And I will tell you more about my story as we go along. I'd love to stay connected with you guys afterwards. Social media, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. So if you want to, you guys can find me under Kirsten Casillas. One of the things I always do when I talk to any MOPS group, really any group, is I talk about comparison, because comparison is the thing that almost sabotaged my MOPS experience. When I walked into MOPS my first time 11 years ago, I was a very different woman. I had a almost 1-year-old. My daughter Sophia, who's 12 now, she was almost 1, and I still had done a lot of work, but there was still a lot of brokenness in me. And motherhood brought up stuff at a whole new level. Have you guys found this too? I was like, I thought I had it under control, and man, there is anger that's coming up. There is fear that's coming up. There's insecurity that's coming up at a whole new level that's deeper than I've been experiencing for a while. And I did not really know. I was not equipped to handle that, right? So when I came into my MOPS group, I would come in, and at that time in life, I thought if I had a bad day or a bad morning, I was a bad mom. Not true. Not true. All moms have bad days. But I was in this place where I had such a critical narrative in my head all the time, really based in a ton of shame. And so I would walk in, and I maybe had forgotten, maybe we were running late, right? Like always running late with kids, right? I was running late, and I'd be mad at myself, especially if I was on leadership and I wasn't there in time, or I had forgotten a diaper. And like, who forgets a diaper? What kind of mom forgets a diaper? Like all moms will forget a diaper. Some moms are known for never having enough diapers, so you just bring the extra diaper when you know you're gonna hang out with her. Like, it's not a big deal, right? Or I would trim the baby's nails, and she'd bleed, and I was like, oh my gosh, someone's calling CPS. Like, it's over, they're gonna take her away. And that was, everybody does that too, but I did not know that in the beginning. I'm like, I love this girl. I never knew I could love anyone or anything as much as this baby girl. And like, I do not want to jack her up. And so like, I put all this pressure on myself, right? So maybe I had a bad morning trying to get out of the house. Like just find both shoes, just any shoes. I don't care if they match. We just got to go, right? And I'd come into MOPS, and I'd be in line for coffee, or I'd be in line for food. And I'd just be sitting there doing that shame attack, right? Attacking myself for all the mom fails, all the things I haven't done enough, all the ways I'm failing her, failing my husband, failing life. And I would just notice some mom who just, God bless her, got to take a shower this morning. Got to do her hair. Well, doesn't she have a life of luxury? Isn't that nice? Oh, look at her children. They have 2 shoes that match. Wow. I bet our kids eat all their vegetables too without complaining. Then I just would start making up stuff I have like no way of even knowing. Like, I bet her and her husband have sex like 3 times a week. And we know that's not happening at my house. We cannot be friends. Like, you better not be at my table because we have nothing in common. I have made up this total fictional story about this woman. I don't even know her name. But I have decided we cannot be friends, and we need to be apart from each other. Like, we're almost enemies, right? I have made up this whole story that has created this separation between a woman who is in the exact same MOPS group. Somehow we found each other at the same place. We live in the same area. We're in the same life stage. We live in this same crazy world, in the same crazy time period. We have so much in common. But all because of what I've made up in my head, I have decided we cannot be friends. Right? I've talked to so many groups and MOPS groups. I have never met one single mom that said, I have come here for comparison. I needed a new pool of women to compete with. There weren't enough in other places, so you guys are it. Like, I just came to compete and compare with you. Not one. Everybody comes for connection. Everybody comes for connection. And I heard this, I was a couple years into my MOPS group, and I heard the Roosevelt quote that says, comparison is the thief of joy. Comparison is the thief of joy. And it hit me deep. And I was like, I can have comparison or I can have joy, but I cannot have both. And I was like, I want to be done. I said I'm done, but it was like, I'm done with, I'm not gonna play that game anymore. When that narrative starts to come, when those thoughts start to come, I'm squashing it. I am not gonna do that anymore. And when I look at the world now, where everyone's so deeply in need of connection, the last thing I wanna do is walk into a room and make women feel like they're my enemy. We do not need more of that in this world. We do not need somebody that's checking it up, making a story about us, rejecting us before we even know each other's names. We do not need that right now. And so what I'm inviting you guys to do is to crush comparison in your own lives too. When you start to feel those thoughts coming in, whether it is the attack on you or whether it's the attack on her, just stop the narrative. You can literally interrupt that thought pattern and not let it continue to domino and to snowball, and you can stop that separation and you can choose joy instead. Is this something that we could work on at least? Is this good? Okay. Yes. So I thought this was just me. I thought this is just something that I'm plagued by. I had lots of reasons and justification why this is what my mind looked like inside. But the more I talked about it, the more, when I kept doing this public service announcement at MOPS groups, everyone's totally with me. I'm like, okay, so it's not just an Orange County thing, because Orange County is jacked. Orange County is jacked up. So I love it. I'm like, okay, it's not that. It's not just my story. Everyone is. And then I came across this article. See, I don't have any letters before or after my name. I am an expert of absolutely nothing. I literally share my story. I am a mom just like you guys from a MOPS group that experienced some transformation that comes and shares it with you. I'm just someone who's just journeying along in the same journey, and I'm just a few steps ahead by age and by what the work I've done, so I just come back and share that with you. She is legit. She actually has, she's a doctor. She works with Onsite. If you guys have ever heard of Miles Adcox, he's incredible, and Onsite is phenomenal. They're a great follow. And so she comes out with this article in the last 6 months that says, the universal secret is that everybody thinks that they're not enough. I was like, whoa, I thought it was just me. Turns out, literally all of us feel like we're not enough. And I think the reality of that is we feel like we're not enough in different places in our life. In high school, how we felt like we weren't enough is not the same now, right? In our first job, we felt like we weren't enough in a different way. But motherhood, does motherhood not the equalizer too? I feel like I'm not enough. I feel like I do not know what I'm doing. And then right when you get it down, they change. And you're like, I'm not enough for a 4-year-old. I know how to do 3, but you're 4, and now what do I do? Or a second kid or a third kid, and you're like, I don't know how to do this, right? It's this constant thing. And I was like, wait a second. If this is true, then I know that when I go into a space, I do not want to be the person that is doing the competition game. Because everybody has their own narrative in their head. And I don't want to do a single thing that's going to add to that narrative. I really want to change that. And so that's a journey for me, right? To move from literally being plagued where if I walked into a room, I was checking it out. I'm better or I'm less than, I'm better, I'm less than. Every thought that was in my head was that way. So this will be a journey for me to be able to really be able to embody love the way I want to. But what I think that we can maybe lean into is this idea of when we come here, we're all on the same page, right? When we come here, this is the sacred circle of safety. We can be us, we can say what we need to say, we can listen to each other with honor. This will be the place where we're not going to be oh no, oh mama, oh my gosh, wow, well I'm better than her, because we can do it in both directions. We can do it where we're the sucky one, or we can do the one that's elevated, right? So you gave them McDonald's 3 nights this week. We had organic last night. I'm just saying, we can go in both directions, right? But it's all toxic. So there's no shame in this. It's more now I'm aware, now I can choose to do it differently. That's really what it is. And it's not about, it's progress, it's not perfection. It's about leaning into, man, you know what? I had all those thoughts and I stopped it. Victory for me. There might have been 5 times when I didn't stop it. But that's okay, because really it used to be 15 times all the time. And if one time I make some progress, that's worth celebrating. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. So I'm just gonna invite you guys to take a breath. Literally, inhale, exhale, maybe just do a quick body scan of like, are you clenching? Are you tense somewhere? When I do this, I find I didn't even know, I like clench my jaw. I didn't even know I was doing that. It's so normal. Or I'll find that I'm like tense and like just like really just knotted up in here, and I just have to like, okay, let it go. I think that in motherhood, we don't breathe a lot. We're like, oh, they're gonna fall. They're gonna poop in the bath. We're gonna, you know, we're just like constantly in that mode, like where we're not actually inhaling and exhaling. And I think that MOPS is a time to inhale and exhale. So we're gonna breathe a couple of times this morning. So All for Love is the theme for MOPS this year, and they always, I love everything that they come up with. They're so incredible. And they have these sub-ideas, and the ones for this year are walk in power, love one another, and make love your legacy. When I described where I was with all of that comparison, I was not doing this very well, right? What we're going to talk about today is this idea of beloved, and I'll describe what that is. I'll give you some context for it. We'll talk about it, but that's where we're gonna land today. I'm going to give you a little backstory on me, a little history about my story, so that you get an idea about where I'm coming from when I'm learning about beloved. This is a picture of me with my brother and my mom. That was probably about 5th grade. And that was the church directory picture. And my dad's not in it because it was not Christmas and it was not Easter, so he was not there. But that's my beloved mama, and she passed away when I was 12. And when my mom passed away, it was as if this cloud of shame just like rested on me. Guilt is when you feel like you've done something wrong. Shame is when you feel like you are something wrong. And I took a bad thing that happened in my life and I internalized it like I was a bad person. And I walked through life for decades after the age of 12 where I was like, I don't know as much as you guys that have moms. I'm not as equipped. I'm not as valuable. I am somehow less than. I am not enough compared to other moms, the other women that have moms. And it was a huge thing for me. And it led me into all kinds of different types of ways that I would try to overcompensate and be enough. And also where I would just try to medicate and soothe the pain and the loneliness and the insecurity and the fear. And so one of the things that ended up with my journey is that I became a closet alcoholic. And this was before I had kids. It was after I got married. I got sober actually the first year we got married. But I was drinking down this pain that I had never dealt with. And so when I came to my MOPS group, actually, I was like, well, we meet Thursday morning at a church. Like, I don't think there's any drinking. So, but they're church ladies, and I don't think I don't know if they've ever drank alcohol. Like, I can't tell them I'm a recovering alcoholic because, like, what will they do with that, right? So I'm gonna have to hide the fact that I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I'll sit next to the pregnant lady when we go out for mom's night. It's gonna be fine. No one's gonna notice, right? And I found myself tiptoeing around for 3 years. When I was telling my story, I would tell part of my story, but not all of my story. And at the end of our year, we have somebody from within our group that shares their testimony. I was 3 years in. I'd been telling a story the whole time about how we lost our first child. I was talking about the loss of my mom and shame and all that stuff, but I was always leaving out the fact that I was a recovering alcoholic. Until my youngest daughter, Sarah, was born on the anniversary of my sobriety date, and God like connected it all. And I was like, I can't really tell the story if I don't tell the whole story, so I guess I'm gonna tell the whole story. And so this thing that I thought, I can never say this, because if I say this, you'll reject me. If I say this, I won't be able to come back in this room. If I say this, I'll be all alone and I will actually implode and I will have nothing left. So I don't know that I can do that. And I just really felt like God was saying, you can do this, and it's really important. Ladies, I did that, and there was like 100 people in the room. I've never felt so whole in my whole life. Up until that point, my story had owned me. And that day, I owned my story. And I realized the power of not living dissected within ourselves. I realized how freeing and good it feels to be whole, even with the parts that I don't like about myself or my story or my experiences. And I started to see that when I live whole, it encourages other people to live whole too. And there were so many people who started to realize maybe I could tell my story too. Maybe the same thing could happen for me. Maybe I could live whole. Maybe I don't have to self-reject part of my stories or part of me or part of my experiences. And it's been the most incredible thing, because speaking now, like for several years, I've come back and I've had multiple coordinators say, I remember when you came and you told your story, and I had a thing that I wasn't telling people. And I've told them, this happened just a couple weeks ago. And she's like, everything you said on that stage is true. That happened for me. And now she's leading her group. And so like, again, this is not like, I'm not some like lucky girl that like had this, thing. And that's part of the reason why I come and tell my story. Because when I would hear somebody who had all the credentials that stood up here, I would say, well, of course you can be whole. You have like all that certification, you have all those hours, like you had teachers teach you how to do that. That couldn't be for me. But the reality is, it's because of God. It's and there's some things that I had to change. I couldn't keep drinking and have the life that I have. That would not have worked for me. There were things I had to do. But this partnership together has been transformational. And it changes my life, and it's changed the life of people around me, and it's definitely changing the life of my girls, right? And so, to go back to what that was like, and as I lean into Beloved, there was a time when a well-meaning Christian said to me, this was probably in my early 20s, tons of brokenness, still hadn't started any of my recovery journey. And this well-meaning person says, imagine Jesus is standing in front of you. And my response was, I turned away in shame. Not because of Jesus. I thought that Jesus was good and loving and kind and compassionate, but I believed that, but I knew my shame. I knew what was unvaluable about me, and I could not tolerate to be in his presence. So when I talk about Beloved, that's where I come from. I come from the place where I can't even be in the presence of you. To now see myself as your beloved is huge. And when I was in that place of shame, driven by knowing Jesus, but driven by shame, driven by insecurity, and driven by fear, I was not walking in love. I was not walking in love. I was not loving other people. I was so worried about what you thought about me, I wasn't really caring about you. And I was not leaving love a legacy. I would leave interactions with people and they'd be like, something's off. They can sense the disconnection, right? They knew that if she's not whole, then she can't be whole fully with me either, right? Like they could sense it. And so that's not who I wanted to be. That's not who I want to be now. I want to be able to see myself as the beloved of God and walk in that. And so my prayer now is to lean into this idea. And beloved is a biblical word. Some of you may have context for, some of you may not. And I realize that some of you, like, you have come for coffee, like, and for childcare. Like, you're not here for Jesus. You're like, it happens to be the church, but I really want the coffee, and the mom time, so I'm gonna come in spite of the fact that it's a church. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is not a Bible study, but I will give you another. If the word beloved feels weird, let me offer you this. What if we allowed ourselves to be loved? What if we just allowed ourselves to be loved? I think we'd walk really differently if we allowed ourselves to be loved. Let me give you the definition of beloved. To be greatly loved, not like I love Target, but like to be greatly loved, implies more than human affection, not like chocolate, right? A deeply intimate relationship. If you have a deeply intimate relationship, then that means that you're known and you're loved. So your strengths, your weaknesses, the good, the bad, all that stuff, that's known and you're still loved. An esteem for others that comes from recognizing our value as children of God, which means I can see you as the children of God and I can see you as beloved. I can call out the belovedness in you. When I look at my girls, and when you think of your kids, are they not the beloved? Like, is that not like slam dunk, no question? I could go to the jury and be like, this is why my kids are beloved. Mamas, are you the beloved? I know, right? It's so not the same question. It's not the same answer. To claim that we are the beloved is so much harder. The statistics show that the height of a girl's self-esteem is age 9. And it goes down after that. And aren't we still trying to recover it? Right? And I look at my girls and I'm like, you're 12 and gonna be 9 in 2 months. I'm like, man, we're right there. And so I realized, like, Lord, teach me to walk in the way of the beloved, because my girls are watching me. And this is what I always think about. Are you not the favorite person of your kids? Like, dad's cool and all, but like, you are your kid's person, 100%, right? Do your kids see you as the beloved? Absolutely. So if our kids see us as the beloved, but they see us not see ourselves as the beloved, what do our kids do with that? Well, mommy's everything. Mommy's never wrong, so I must be wrong. Well, if I'm wrong and mommy's not really the beloved, then how in the world can I ever be the beloved? Because I know I just hit my sister, and I know I stole candy yesterday, and I know I want to, right, get away with all kinds of stuff. And it makes it really difficult for kids to see themselves as the beloved when the person who they know is the beloved doesn't act and walk like the beloved, right? So I never even realized until I thought about all this that I'm like, dang, like the work for me to accept that I'm the beloved and walk in that way, like this is one of the best things I could do for my kids. Because for those of you who have daughters, you're hearing me about that whole age 9, like, what the heck? Like, no, right? And those of you that are moms of boys, who do you want your boys to marry? Someone who knows that she's the beloved, or someone that has to learn that and then is gonna model what for their kids? I never had that reaction yet. That's a new reaction, but I love it. I love that. I don't know if that's tears or happiness. I don't know. Yeah, it's intense, right? Heavy. It's super heavy. It's super heavy. And you guys, we're having this conversation because your kids are little. You have the time. I'm learning this now. My girls are 12 and 8. You're pregnant. Like, to get this now, you guys, changes the legacy of our families. It's massive. And this is what I always remind myself. God's grace is big enough for our mistakes. God's grace is big enough for our mistakes. God's grace is big enough for our gaps. God's grace is big enough for the stuff that I did not know before, but I know now. And he'll fill it in before, like we have to hold on to that, because that is the only way that we will actually be able to walk in power. Otherwise we will walk in defeat, right? We got to hold on to the anchors that are true. So take a breath. It's heavy. It is. It's a lot. Take a breath and just let out what needs to be let out, but also let the truth settle in. Whatever is resonating with you, like let it stick, right? So as I started this journey of like, I'm into this word beloved, I want to understand this, I'm diving into this, I found this book from Henry Nouwen. It's amazing. So people who know him, I love it. So this book, tiny book, Life of the Beloved, amazing book. So again, Nouwen, he's like a priest, a writer. He was a teacher at Harvard, Yale, and Notre Dame. So he's legit. And he wrote in this book, I love this, you guys. I'm going to read this over you. This is scripture that God is speaking over you. I have called you by name from the very beginning. You are mine and I am yours. You are my beloved. On you my favor rests. I knitted you together in your mother's womb. I have carved you in the palm of my hands and hidden you in the shadow of my embrace. I look at you with infinite tenderness and care for you with a care more intimate than that of a mother for her child. I have counted every hair on your head and guided you at every step. Wherever you go, I go with you, and wherever you rest, I keep watch. I will give you food that will satisfy all your hunger, and drink that will quench all your thirst. I will not hide my face from you. You know me as your own, and I know you as my own. Wherever you are, I will be. Nothing will ever separate us. He also said, becoming the beloved means letting the truth of our belovedness become enfleshed in everything we think, say, or do. Becoming the beloved is pulling the truth revealed to me from above down into the ordinariness of what I am, in fact, thinking of, talking about, and doing from hour to hour. When our deepest truth is that we are the beloved, and when our greatest joy and peace come from fully claiming that truth, it follows that this has to become visible and tangible in the ways we eat and drink, talk and love, play and work. If we learn to walk in the beloved, it changes everyone we come in contact with. Our husbands, our best friends, our kids, our neighbors, our workplace, our church, our MOPS group, everyone we come in contact, the person at Trader Joe's. It changes everything. And when you think of the world that we're in right now, there is so much uncertainty. There is so much fear. There's so much unknown, and there is a lot of darkness. And when we can walk in the way of the beloved, there is something so attractive about that. You will stand out and shine in a way that's not for you, but that is radiating that love, that light, that positivity to the other people that you come in contact with. They see it. And they're like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know what it is, but like, could I just rub a little bit of that strength off of you just for myself? You know, like they're desperate for it. And this idea, again, like the idea of being his beloved, that might be hard, but like, what if you just walked in the way your kids see you? Right? Would that not be it? If I just walked and lived from the place of love that my kids see me as, I would walk differently. I would totally show up at Trader Joe's different, right? I would Christmas shop different. I would not listen to any marketing, and I would do what was actually right for me, because I would know that there's no gift I will give that will change my worth and my belovedness. It would be such a different world for me if I even just walked from the place of where my kids love me, right? So if that's the next step, do that as we lean into learning how to walk in the way of the beloved of God, right? Just walking in that. So I'm also not a brain scientist, but I'm going to talk to you about brain science. There are synapses and neurons in our brain that fire every time we have an idea. So when we have an idea that's or some concept that comes up, when it's brand new, new neurons are made, and they fire, right? And something that's brand new to us will have kind of like a country road in terms of that synapse, right? Like not very strong. But something that we know, that we have a lot of experience with, your name, for example, right, is going to be like a super highway, super, super strong synapse, right? Okay, so all this is happening in your brain all the time, and it's called neuroplasticity. So you can have lots of really strong, powerful synapses that if you stop using them will actually become country roads. And you can have country roads that if they're used a lot will become massive highways, right? This is the jacked up part about it. Neuroplasticity, our brains don't know what's positive and negative. All they know is what's used a lot or what's not. So in our heads, you know, we have a lot of highways on. Not enough. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. But you know what we have little country roads on? I'm the beloved. I'm the beloved. But what's awesome about this and what neuroplasticity says is we can diminish by not using those country roads of I'm not enough, and we can strengthen the beloved, right? And that is what I think is what the Bible is saying, where God helps us transform our minds. This is literally the science that proves it. Excuse me. So what you guys have is a 3x5 card on your place setting. What we have in our heads and in our brains is a lot of messages that have reinforced this not enoughness. And what we want to do is do some work on those today. What I'm going to invite you guys to do is write down on that 3x5 card the messages that you have received in your life. Maybe it's from you, maybe it's from your husband, from your parents, from a coach, from a teacher, from an ex, from a friend. The messages that you've received that are in opposition to the idea that you are God's beloved. So any message that has said you're not enough goes on the sheet, right? So it can be specific, it can be general, but write down on that 3x5 card some of the things that you have heard that are essentially the lies about yourself that oppose the fact that you are God's beloved. And I'll just let you guys take a minute to write. Mine would be I'm not enough, not good enough, not a good mom, not a good wife. Maybe it's that you're not smart, you're not beautiful, you're not capable, you're not brave. There's a million things, right? I'm going to interrupt you and have you stop. Because I think if we were in a room full of men, they would have already stopped. They would have written like one or two and been like, I'm done. Did your activity, lady. You know why? Because they know they have to leave this place and go slay the dragons and take care of their families. And they know it's not going to serve them to have a big old long list of all the reasons they suck. But why can we sit here and make a long list of the reasons we suck? Why are we so comfortable with that? It's an awareness, right? But this is what I want you to do with this. I want you to write in caps, beloved, over every one of those lies. I want you to squash and diminish that stuff, and I want you to write the truth over that says beloved. No, that I wrote down first was a lie. I'm beloved, 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 beloved. And when those lies pop up again, you do just like you do with comparison. Like, nope, I'm not going there. I'm not playing that narrative. I'm not going to come up with all the reasons why I'm not good enough. I'm going to remind myself I'm the beloved. End of conversation. End of mental conversation. Nope, I'm the beloved. Not going to continue to make a list that says otherwise, right? Take a second to breathe in beloved and breathe out those lies. Let them go, release them, reject them, push them away, and breathe in that belovedness. Beloved means, this is written by Marvin Vincent, excuse me. Beloved means that those who are loved unconditionally, sacrificially, as can be perfectly done only by God himself. God's love for his beloved is not sentimental or emotional, but represents the act of his will with the intended goal of the recipient's highest good, irrespective of whether they deserved it. I love this verse, and I had done this presentation a couple times before I even saw the power of this verse and why, or this passage and why I love it. The reality is that, excuse me, there will be times, let me go back. Our kids look at us as the mirror for their belovedness. And there are times when we will not reflect to them their belovedness because we are imperfect. And God is the only one who can perfectly do that for them. And there will be times when my girls will look at me and who knows, maybe they'll crash the car or they'll lie to me or they'll do something and I will have a response that does not say you are the beloved. I will say in some way, communicate to them that they're not enough. And when I do that, I need them to have an anchor to know I'm not the reflection that tells you the truth. I need them to anchor their belovedness in God and not in me. Because I very well could do something or say something that they could put on a list someday at MOPS. And if that is their only source of the truth of their belovedness, they're not gonna have something steady to stand upon, right? So this is huge for me to understand that it's how you treat me is not the mirror for my belovedness either. And how I treat my kids and how anybody, all of that, that's never gonna be the true reflection of our belovedness. It's only gonna be from God himself, right? He's the only one that can get it right all the time. And so that's an important thing to remember as we walk through this, because I want to be able to walk in power. I want my kids to be able to walk in power. And they're only gonna have a source that can do that for them if they get it from God. It can't just come from me. I'll be a great influence on it, I hope, but I cannot be the only source. They will only know how to love one another through God, not through me. I'll model some behaviors. I'll try to help guide their heart, but it is only through God that they're gonna be able to love the unlovable. It is not gonna be for me, right? And to make love their legacy, the only way they're gonna be able to do that is through the Holy Spirit's power. It is not gonna be through me. You know what my goal for my kids is? That you will require less therapy than I did, and that you will not have to go to rehab unless you actually need it. That's literally I'm like, that's it. You know, I'm realistic. Maybe God will surprise me and do something really incredible, exceedingly and amazingly, more than I could ever ask and imagine. That's what my hope is. These are some of the books that have been really helpful for me on this journey to being able to walk in the way of the beloved and break away from shame and fear and insecurity that drove me. And so feel free to take a picture of this if you are interested. Lovable is an incredible book. That's the one I'm gonna raffle off. This guy, Kelly Flanagan, is a man. He has his baby girl, first child. He's in the beauty aisle of a department store and he sees all the messages that say, buy this to be beautiful, entice him with this, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, this is crap. Like, my baby girl is beauty. Like, there is no addition that needs to happen. He sees it so clearly, but we've been, programmed from all this from our whole lives. And he sees it, and that day he goes home and he writes this letter to his daughter about who she really is. and where her beauty comes from, and that there is nothing that she can buy on an aisle that's ever going to change her beauty. It is an amazing book. And if you did not have a daddy that talked to you like that, girl, get this book. Oh my God, it's beautiful. He has a podcast. He's been on the Today Show. He's amazing. Emotionally Healthy Women and Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. Those are books that gave me skills on emotional health. I was not equipped with a lot of emotional skills when I was growing up. And so where do you go when you're a grown up to learn that stuff? I went to these books. I also went to AA. Hopefully you won't have to go. I mean, if you have to go, you have to go. But if you don't, maybe these things you can, I call it care before the crisis. Why do Christians need to go into a 12-step program to learn emotional health? It's all in there. We just, so yeah. Those are great books. Leanna Tankersley's San Diego Girl, Brazen. Love this book. Brazen means without shame. Such a great book. Love that book. And then those of you guys that know Brene Brown, The Gifts of Imperfection. Your kids do not want a perfect mom. It's not possible. And do you know what perfect moms do? They tell their kids that they should be perfect kids. And our kids are smart and honest enough to know they can't do it. So why would we set our kids up for failure, right? Just be real. Just be real and let them know too. You're going to have strengths, you're going to have weaknesses, and it's all good. God's going to use it all, right? In closing, I'm going to invite you guys to read this. This is that passage I read over you in the beginning, and now I'm going to ask you guys to say it in the first person if you want to. You guys ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. God has called me by name from the very beginning. I am his and he is mine. I am his beloved. On me his favor rests. God has knitted me together in my mother's womb. Jesus has carved me in the palm of his hands and hidden me in the shadow of his embrace. God looks at me with infinite tenderness and cares for me with a care more intimate than that of a mother for her child. He has counted every hair on my head and guided me at every step. Wherever I go, he goes with me, and wherever I rest, he keeps watch. He will give me food that will satisfy all my hunger and drink that will quench all my thirst. He will not hide his face from me. I know him as my own, and he knows me as his own. I belong to him. Wherever I am, he will be. Nothing will ever separate us. You can take a picture of that too if you want to, so you can read it over your kids, frame it in the bathroom. I think I'm going to frame it in the bathroom. Maybe my girls will just be bored and they'll read it. Or anybody who's visiting, like this is a message for everybody. I'll leave that up there while I just wrap this up. You guys are going to get to go into some discussion time now. And I have one question that I want you guys to ask. It's one question, and there's intention to it. The question is, what is one thing that you want to remember from this talk? And what happens when you answer this question is, it's the brain science again. You recall the things that were talked about this morning, and you pick out one. And as you're recalling all those things, you're reinforcing it in your brain, right? And then when you say it out loud, you're reinforcing it in your brain. And when you hear each other talk about it, you're doing two things. You're reinforcing it in both of your brains, and you're also creating a connection between each other. You're like, oh, see, I thought she was perfect, but she actually liked the same thing I did. We have a lot in common, right? And so there's a lot of intention to this one question. There could be 47 things that you could walk away with, but none of us are going to implement that. Let's pick one, right? So I will leave you with that. There are little colored door prize slips on your table too. If you guys want to fill those out, I'll collect those, and then we'll do the raffle for the Lovable book. And then that's it. I'm done. All right, thank you guys. Yay.